Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Dr. Joey interviews Christian business professionals just like you to discover their secrets for working faith positive in a negative world. Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett.
Faith Positive Nation, I don't know about you, but my life is filled with challenges. Most of them are beyond my control. If you don't have any challenges, I'll be glad to loan you a few, just so you can take the amazing conversation that I'm blessed to have today with Jay Lucas, because Jay is all about how to meet challenges with your faith in tow, with a can-do attitude, and just how to make some positive things happen in your life. He's a best-selling author of American Sunshine. He's all about positivity and patriotism and community engagement. So prepare yourself for an amazing conversation today with Jay Lucas. Jay, welcome to Faith Positive Radio.
Well, thank you very, very much for the opportunity. Great to be with you.
We're delighted to have you on. So challenges, you've known a few.
We all know challenges, be they challenges in your personal life or in your business life. They happen every day. Some people call them problems, but if you tackle them with the right kind of attitude, it can really turn those problems into really creative, exciting opportunities. And that's really what I'm all about.
Wow. And so what kind of attitude should I have, Jay, in order to convert problems into opportunities?
Well, I think it starts actually with an attitude, a deep gratitude, actually. A gratitude for all that you have been given, all of our God-given talents and opportunities and resources and our faith, actually. And I think if you start with that, then that becomes a very strong foundation. And the foundation itself can then give you the optimism and the can-do feeling and approach that makes it so you can actually tackle problems and challenges and do it in a way where you get to solutions that you might not have thought of early on without that gratitude.
So gratitude really is the jet fuel that propels you to face these challenges.
You start with the gratitude, and gratitude, I think, engenders a certain amount of faith. And that faith can delineate itself into specific purposes and objectives that you feel are really your mission and your destiny. And with those, you then get the power, really tap into a special power to go accomplish things that you might not have thought you possibly could.
You remind me of the Message translation, Dr. Peterson's translation of Ephesians 3:20, where he talks about God can do anything, far more than you can imagine, guess, or request in your wildest dreams. That power is really a supernatural power that takes us places where we didn't know we could go, isn't it, Jay?
Well, it is an immense power, and it's a power that really starts, in my view, with the power of belief. You really have to believe that you can accomplish, believe that you have the power, believe that it's your destiny to go do, like you say, sometimes fairly incredible things. And you have to be, at the same time that you believe, I think it's also important to have a feeling of gratitude. The gratitude that it has been given to you, and that you need not necessarily ask for it, but simply have the gratitude that it has already been given. And I think that's really where much of the power comes from.
So believing that it's already accomplished as you begin.
Yeah, it's having that vision, having a almost tangible, visible, almost physical vision of where it is that you believe that you're going to see yourself and what you're going to achieve. I think having that in your mind allows it to sort of seep into your subconscious, become part of you, and you tap into a force that is really an unstoppable force.
So really you're talking about us tapping into the Holy Spirit who lives within us, in our human spirits, and then working cooperatively with God to go do what God calls us to do.
It's amazing what can be accomplished when you kind of tap into that power source.
Jay, what have you been able to accomplish? Because you just didn't wake up one morning and say, I think I'll be positive about challenges and with a can-do attitude and see what God can do. It must have been some life experiences that shaped you.
Yeah, there are many. There's one that I've been involved in most recently that I'm very proud of, and I think begins to illustrate this in some meaningful way. And that is, I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire. So a small town, rural setting, about 5,000 people in the western part of the state, a town called Newport. And if you can imagine back a number of years ago, Newport was not unlike so many thriving little towns around New Hampshire, around the country, really.
Mm-hmm.
You go back there now, and that same main street that used to have shops where you'd know every single store along the main street, and you'd know the family that owned it and the independent shopkeepers. You go back there now, and you don't see the same place. You see a main street that's largely vacant in big chunks. Many of the jobs have left town. I know in our community, the opioid crisis and substance abuse has been really devastatingly impactful. So now I don't live there now. I do live in New Hampshire, but I don't live in that town. But I was visiting earlier this year, which I do, driving down the main street, and I just had this moment where I said, I'm going to change this. I'm going to revitalize this town. I'm going to lead an effort to do it, and it's going to happen. And now I didn't know where to start, I must say.
Well, God gave you the what, right?
I knew where we wanted to go. And so I think this kind of life experience within the last year really does exemplify many of the principles. So I reached out. The first thing I did is I reached out to my high school teacher, who was actually still teaching. And if you do the math on that by itself, that's quite a feat. And he and his wife and my wife and I sat down for lunch, and because I wanted to tap into the community, and I figured if he'd been teaching that long, he and his wife's a teacher too, that they would know not only one generation, but probably two generations of Newporters, and they would be able to give me insight. And they said, basically you're right. It's not the same town than when they started teaching years and years ago. And they volunteered to introduce me down to the high school and meet the superintendent and tour the high school, which we did a couple of weeks later. But then I still really didn't know what to do, but I knew I had to do this. And one evening, I sent out an email to some friends I had known in town and a group, and just hoped that somebody would get back to me. And basically, the email said this. It said, there will be a meeting on Friday morning at 11:30 at the Salt Hill Pub to revitalize Newport. And it was one of the greatest feelings that you can imagine as I'm watching my inbox and my email, and I start to see it populate with, one old friend says, I'll be there. And another one says, I'll be there. And I began to think, this really could happen. So there I was. So there I was on the Friday morning at 11:30, maybe it was actually a few minutes before, waiting at the top of the stairs at the Salt Hill Pub, waiting for people to show up on my wife. And I thought, okay. Then I was gripped by this moment where I had trepidation, actually. This was a challenging moment where I said to myself, what am I doing? I don't even live here. And I'm asking people who live in this town to revitalize their town. And I really didn't know what kind of reception I would. So as people came up the stairs, I greeted them enthusiastically and tried to create a positive sort of feel and said, hey, it's going to be great. It's great to see you. We're going to do wonderful things. And then we all sat down at a table. There were 12 people. And I began to talk because I was the host. I thanked them for coming, and but I didn't really know what the response was. I didn't know what kind of support I'd have in that group.
Sure.
So I said, well, Newport is a great town, and I kind of looked across the table and said, but it sort of hinted, but it's not quite what it used to be. And I kind of got sort of a positive response, and hey, we could make this sort of better. And I was getting I thought a good vibe, but I wasn't clear, and I was a little bit afraid to stop talking, actually. I didn't know what was going to happen, right?
What would they say, right?
What would they say? And this is either a great idea, or maybe it's stillborn and, unfinished.
That's right.
And so as I finished, there was a man, so it went totally silent. And there's a man directly across the table from me, and he's 91 years old. And he's vital, he's an industrialist in town, and he's hugely respected. And he said, before anybody says a word, and my heart was in my throat, but before anybody says a word, I just want to say how wonderful it is that Jay is back in town and we're going to revitalize this place. It was at that moment that I knew, oh my goodness gracious, we are on our way.
Yeah, that was a mic drop, right? Boom.
It was a blessing. And from that moment on, we have now gone from the 2 people, my wife and I, to 12 people at that meeting, to 35 people at another meeting. We now have approximately 150 to 175 people excited about revitalization. And there's something about the interpersonal dynamic of when you get this enthusiasm and excitement around an initiative like this that's contagious, really positive, contagious way. And we've been able to accomplish things so far that, you would have thought were impossible. But now we're creating this, what I call belief, a belief that it can be done. And it's becoming, that picture of what it could be is starting to fill in some of the little areas in the picture. And once you get the couple little pieces of evidence, a couple more fall into place, and other people's, it creates this excitement, this other ideas, where it creates an energy where other people are suggesting ideas and putting energy behind this. So if I take it all the way back, it really started with this vision of what it could be. Still, there's much work to do, but this vision of what it could be, and the faith that if you take those first steps, that there will be a power behind you, and that there is a destiny and a desire to accomplish this. So that'd be one very living, recent example of how just having the faith to step out there and believe this is a mission that's important, but a mission that can be accomplished really makes a difference.
So I hear you asking yourself, who am I don't even live here anymore, to lead this collaborative community engagement for revitalization. How did God convince you, Jay, you're the one? Raise your hand, send an email, and see what happens.
Well,
Did you just say to God, oh, sure, I'll be glad to do that? Or was there a defining moment in which you realized this was yours to do?
Well, there was a defining moment when it literally did hit me as I was driving through town that day, that it's not the same place, that I need to do something about this. And it's something I'm going to do. And at that moment, I clearly had very little idea as to what would be involved, and, nor how I would go about it, but a sense that that it is a job that needs to be done, that I bring I've got a desire that, I'm sort of met with this desire that I feel that to do this, wherever that comes from. And then more on a conscious thought basis, because I think that comes from the subconscious. That's a subconscious that this needs to be done. I need to do it. It's almost not you put it in words. You just sort of feel it. But then as you start thinking about it consciously, you think, well, logically, I have relationships from outside of Newport and outside of New Hampshire, and in my business relationships that I've been able to establish over the years, and therefore it can draw upon resources that I think could be really beneficial. So yes, it does, kind of testing myself. Yes, I guess it does make sense that I could do this, because I'm actually positioned in a pretty nice place to be the person to do it. I have the capabilities. So yeah, it all kind of fits and makes sense. So that's sort of the evolution of it, actually, if you will.
So there was this internal sense of calling from God that this needed to be done and that you could do it. So the calling was very specific at that point. So there was that internal affirmation of, it's mine to do, and yes, I could do it. Then as resources began to converge and you saw more and more the movement from the what to the how, you received an external confirmation that, yes, it's not just me that sees this need and is willing to help with it, but other people did too. It's awesome and absolutely amazing what happens when we step out in faith in response to God's call.
Well, it's been, of all the things I've ever done in my personal life, business life, volunteer faith, This is by far the most rewarding activity. And why is it that? It's because I think there's several dimensions to that. I think one is that it truly is a selfless act. Or in other words, I don't, there's no particular benefit to me that you would say, no material benefit, if you will. If anything, probably the opposite. But Newport, well, here's the feeling. I grew up in this great little town, and I've been able to accomplish things. And I've been able to accomplish them not just by myself, but by what so many people have given me over the years and had faith in me, and the elders of the town, the people who are my mentors, the people who cared, and out of just great, really altruism, actually, that they would do those things, created the sense of community. I think in my experience, to the extent that I've been able to achieve, much of it has to do with the fact that people believed in me and instilled a certain belief that therefore I had this potential. And it's that encouragement, that vision that they paint for you and with you, where you can achieve. And so I owe that group, many of whom are no longer with us, a deep debt of gratitude. And there's a sense of being able to repay that by trying to give back to this next generation who really do need the help significantly, much more so than when I was growing up, that we can have a really positive impact on them. So I'll give you one, for instance, if I may.
Sure.
So this will make it come to life a little bit. So what can I do? So one of the programs that we've just initiated is that because I have entrepreneurial friends in business in New York City, for instance, in the digital area, one of the programs that we've just started is a digital training program that is spearheaded by 3 firms in New York City who have put together a training program, a curriculum that starts this month. It's going to be from October through December of 2018, and we'll keep running them each 3-month period, where we train 20 students. We train 20 students in Newport, and we'll train them on web design, Java, programming, coding, etc. By the time they get through this 3-month training program, they're certified. And by being certified, and now keeping in mind that the trainers are in New York City, they are in Newport, New Hampshire. They're learning all of this remotely. They stay in Newport, qualify for work, digital work for the same firms here in New York City. And it's amazing, because they're going to be able to earn significant amount of money, but even more than the money. And by the way, they're just the first 20. We'll keep going 20 more and 20 more. We're going to change the fabric of the community, not just by, yes, it'd be great to bring the income and the dollars, but the self-worth, the feeling of empowerment, the achievement, that they can, where they didn't have opportunities before, there are now opportunities, and they're out seizing opportunities, and they're going to feel really good about that feeling I call earned success. That great gratification when you can actually go out and earn a success. And the great part about that is it's contagious. When the older brother sees it, the younger sister sees it, etc. You start to build a community of people who can achieve, are optimistic about the future. And that's a great atmosphere to try to create.
And they're right there in Newport. So what I hear you saying is, in your growing up years in Newport, people saw in you what you didn't see in yourself. They believed in you before you really believed in yourself, and they spoke that vision and belief into you. And so now it's come full circle, and it's your turn to help do that with current residents of Newport.
Yeah, so we're doing it in a number of ways, but one of the great ideas I think that has been bubbled up from the group is the idea of mentors. So if you can imagine a community like so many other communities in our country where there is some degree of poverty, there's some degree of lack of fathers in the household, there are mothers who may be on drugs or substance, and homes that are just not great places for kids to grow up.
Sure.
It makes it really difficult for those kids. They don't have role models, and they really need the role models to have that belief in themselves, have a vision of what they can achieve. And so in our community, we have a number of older people, experienced people who have time. And so we said, gee whiz, what if we were to create a mentor program where we match some of those older people with some of the younger kids who don't have role models? We're going to call it Mentors. We came up with a name for the program. We call it Mentors with a Mission. So Mentors with a Mission. And each one of the adults is supervising or mentoring one child. And it's going to make a real difference in that kid's life. And so we're excited. And that's a way of helping out.
Yeah, and you're really helping guys like that 91-year-old industrialist, right? Pass on his wisdom to the next generation so that it continues to live.
Yeah. Well, in fact, his name is Roy. And Roy, in this whole, one of the great experiences I've had over the last number of months as we've gotten this initiative going is my relationship with Roy. Now, Roy is someone who is obviously older than me, but also somebody who is much more of my parents' generation.
Right.
I knew of him. I didn't know him well growing up, but I knew of him. And but now, Roy and I are basically partners. We're making the thing happen together. And I got to give the guy so much credit. He'll jump in the car. He'll jump on the, get on an airplane if he needs to do. He's generous in every possible way. And he's so engaged in this because I think he also has I know he has a huge sense of wanting to give to this community, the community that's been so great to him.
Boy, Roy's leaving a legacy. That's what he's very intentional about creating, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah, it's very important.
What you've helped him do is lift his head, right, and see what can be in that community. And that's got to be one of the essential ingredients in community engagement, Jay, is the ability to see and that vision to see. And that's obviously a God-given gift of yours, is to be visionary.
I like to think of myself, and I try to be humble about it, but I do feel as though I have a vision that has been given to me in some part by my experience having grown up in the town and seeing the earlier town as it existed, but then also having life experiences outside of the town that let me know what is possible.
Yeah, so you're helping that little town lift its eyes up into the hills from whence cometh their help, right? We've got to look beyond our current malaise to what could be. So you've written this book, American Sunshine. How is that book impacting communities to engage in these kinds of ways that you're talking about, to be more positive with a can-do attitude?
Well, American Sunshine it's a book that taps deep into the vein of the American traditional beliefs and says, what if I looked at an America in terms of its possibilities, in terms of our full potential, if you will? And I look beyond the political divisiveness and bitterness and so forth that's kind of going on so rampant in our political discourse now. I said, let's say, what could we be? And what could we be if we go back to a number of our core values? And when you come right down to it, there's so many areas where we have common ground and we can achieve. But it takes that, let's get rid of the negativity, let's take that can-do approach toward America. So that's a primary theme of the book. But I think an equal dimension, and certainly an important dimension in the book, is there's a spiritual dimension. So spiritual in the sense that it's all about the power of belief, the power of the human spirit. It's the idea of you are limitless if you have the belief. And there are a number of sort of human interest, anecdotal, real life chapters and stories in the book about what people can achieve through the power of their faith, the power of their mind, if you will. And then, just so we don't get too serious here, the book actually is a fun book too, because it has 28 chapters, and each of the chapters has its own cartoon.
It has a cartoon. It's a picture book. Oh boy.
Yeah, good stuff. So we have some fun with it too. But I think it's hopefully it's a book that when people, when I get comments about the book, it did make #1 bestseller on Amazon its first day out. And I get a number of favorable comments. But what I like most and what gives me the greatest sense of reward is when people say, I read your book and it really tapped into something positive. It really made me smile. It made me think about what can be achieved. And I feel so great having read your book. So if I've had impact on a person like that, that makes it all worthwhile for me.
Yeah. Plus, they love the cartoons, right?
Well, they'll keep coming back, yeah. Keep looking at these cartoons.
Right. What are some of those core values that you mentioned that our country, the USA, was founded on that you see as so important?
I think it comes right back down to many of them are embodied in our Constitution, many in our Bill of Rights. But I do think that we need to have a reverence for, at the very core of it, freedom of speech and freedom of religion, freedom of the press. And the reason I say that, there are many political opportunities and goods that flow from those basic values, that if you can have free discourse, that we can have a political dialogue and people are not shut down. But it's also because if you think about those core values, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, think of those. Those all have to do with empowering the individual. And I think it's very, very important that we put a great deal of respect into the individual and the individual's rights. The individual, because if you're going to fulfill all of your potential as an individual, you need to have these opportunities, this ability to be able to express yourself and become all that you can be. And so those are core values. I think also in America, we're an industrious nation, an entrepreneurial nation, that capitalism is a very strong foundational aspect of our being. Property rights, all of these are just and sort of this belief in the rightness and goodness of America. That's where I live, and those are my values. And I believe that if we get to something what I've termed modern patriotism, that it really encapsulates much of this. And so the phrase that I've developed, modern patriotism, really has 3 elements to it. And it really is the fundamental values that you'll see in this book. But it's about the 3 values: believing, achieving, and sharing. If we can believe in these core values of America and believe in all that we can be, then we have this opportunity to achieve. In fact, I go even a bit further and say we not only have this opportunity to achieve, we also have the obligation to achieve. So as individuals, we have the obligation to all those God-given talents and opportunities that we've been given. We have an obligation to try to take those to their fullest potential. And from that, we get what I think of as one of the greatest joys, which is this feeling of earned success. We've accomplished something. We can feel good about ourselves. And this feeling of self-worth is infectious. It's contagious. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
And that's the second part. And then the third is this notion of sharing. Now, clearly, if we've achieved, we have an opportunity to share. In fact, I think we have an obligation to share, I believe. But in addition to that, some people will think of sharing as sort of materialistic sharing. And in some cases, very important that we share what we've been able to produce, and with those who are less fortunate. But what I think of as the pinnacle of this sharing is to be able to share this opportunity to give others this pathway toward earned success, that give them an opportunity to experience what it is like to achieve and feel as though you've achieved. And that feeling, so if you can give that person that, then they're on the road to a much more fulfilled life, much more self-respect, and they can pass that on to the next generation.
Yeah, and it just continues, and they create their own legacy at that point. And it continues to spill over from generation to generation. Okay, you mentioned that it was #1 Amazon bestseller. I'm assuming if I go to Amazon, I can find Kindle, Audible, paper versions there of American Sunshine, right?
It's called American Sunshine, Rays of Hope and Opportunity.
Rays of Hope and Opportunity. That's an amazing title. Well, thank you so much, Jay. Now, Faith Positive Nation usually wants to know from our guest about a favorite Bible verse or Bible passage that's particularly meaningful to you. Have you got one to share with us?
Yeah, my favorite is it's all about faith. Okay, in the sense that you'll know this one immediately, but it's the ask and you shall be given, seek and you shall find, and knock and it shall be open for you. And to me, that is that feeling of faith that you got a vision, you have gratitude, and doors open as a result of that gratitude, that foundational belief that you've been given these opportunities, and you just have to live and do the right things, and all can turn out in a very positive way.
Yeah, and we share opportunity and obligation, right? Out of gratitude with others. That's beautiful, Jay. How can Faith Positive Nation get in touch with you? Is there a website or something we can go to discover more about Jay Lucas?
Sure. Please do. There's one that's simply my name, which is Jay Lucas, Lucas. So at .us, jaylucas.us, jaylucas.us.
All right, great. And that's in your episode copy, Faith Positive Nation. So all you have to do is click on that hyperlink right there. Jay, thank you so much for the gift of your time and your wisdom today. This can-do attitude, this positivity is definitely contagious. And as you've been talking about your hometown, I've been standing here thinking about my own hometown. I go back for my 40th high school class reunion the weekend after we were recording this. So I'm thinking, I was there recently. I looked around. It's not the same town it was when I was growing up as a kid there, and I received much from this hometown. So as I go this weekend, I'll be looking for opportunities and praying for God to reveal to me a vision for how I can be of assistance. So it's definitely contagious. Thank you so much.
Well, one last thing on that.
Sure.
If you go to jaylucas.us, what they'll find is a section on this Newport. We call it the Newport Sunshine Initiative. And the reason we do that is that Newport, for many years, has been known as the Sunshine Town. And so we're bringing the sunshine back in the Newport Sunshine Initiative.
Oh, marvelous. So when we go to jaylucas.us, we just look for the Newport Sunshine Initiative, and we can discover more. So is that something transportable or duplicable to other communities?
I think we are learning lessons that may become best practices and a template, and clearly we want to be able to share those, and maybe we'll be able to share those with your hometown as well.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for that opportunity. I appreciate that a lot, Jay. God bless you and your amazing work and your family as well, Jay. Thanks for the gift of your time and wisdom today.
Thank you so much. A great pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Faith Positive Radio, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Suggest guests and ask questions when you email Dr. Joey at info@getpositive.today. And be sure to get your free gift of the 5 positive business conversations to have today coaching program at getpositive.today. Until next time, may God bless you with everything your heart can hope for and more than your mind can imagine.